Obsession could be a dangerous thing. Not always, but often it leads people to dark places. When your obsession is with perfection, you can find yourself withdrawn from humanity, spending every waking hour of every day searching for some way to make whatever it is you're working on perfect. I've been down that road, and it is not one I'd want to go down again. Welcome once again to Musings by Danon. If you're new here, my name is Danon. I've been watching anime since 1985, and I'm currently reading over 500 manga or light novel series. As someone who has read a lot of manga and seen a lot of anime, as well as studied genre and story structure, I feel I have a pretty good grasp on which manga are worth your time, depending on your tastes. Which brings me to the subject of today's video, obsession and perfection. Before we get started, I'd like to quickly ask you to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel, and it's free. With that out of the way, let's get into the video. Quick story, but I promise this will make sense. Just humor me for a minute. I went back to college in my 30s. I served in the military after high school, then once I was a civilian again, I worked in sales and made pretty good money until the economy collapsed in 2008. Then, in 2011, when the kids were old enough to go to school, I went back to finally get my degree in English literature. So, as someone working part-time on top of going to school and being a parent, time was my most important resource. I mean, time is everyone's most important resource, but this time of my life is when that really hit home for me. I didn't want my kids to have to eat my wife's cooking, so I still needed to make time for dinner every night, on top of helping with chores, homework, and crushing my children at Mario Kart. I mean, spending quality time with my kids. Which ties back to perfection. In order to get an A on a specific piece of homework, let's say it would take 3 hours of work. For that same assignment, I could get a B in only 1 hour, while a C would take about 45 minutes. To me, that extra 15 minutes to improve the grade from a C to a B was absolutely worth it. But the extra 2 hours for an A wasn't. I wasn't on scholarship, so I didn't care about being a perfect 4.0 student. I could get 3 Bs in the same time it took to get 1 A. Sounded like a sweet deal to me. But that's not the case for Gojo, at least in the most recent 10 chapters of My Dress Up Darling. Specifically chapters 86 to 95. Spoiler warning, but a mild one if you're anime only. I won't be talking about any major plot points or character development. I just want to talk about Gojo's recent obsession and how the manga has done a masterful job of portraying it. If you want to avoid any and all spoilers that haven't been officially translated yet, skip to the timestamp on screen now. Chapter 86 both concludes the previous arc and sets up the current one. Gojo had learned a lot about crafting props in the previous arc and wanted to try his hand at making a prop-based costume. For those who don't know, prop work is very different from sewing costumes. All of the knowledge of sewing, bobbin tension, bias, double-blind hemming, applique, fabric selection, quilting, are near useless when it comes to foam, papier-mâché, LED lights, plastidip, woodworking, resin, and clay sculpting. So after Gojo tells everyone that he wants to make a prop-based cosplay, he turns and asks Marin if she has anyone in mind. Almost instantly, an image comes to mind. Haniel. I really, absolutely love Haniel. This shocks the rest of the group. The fact that a high schooler would have read something by Shiba Tokyo, especially Mandate of Heaven. Gojo is confused, of course, because his exposure to anime and manga entirely comes from Marin. It turns out that Marin fell in love with Haniel so hard that she decided to grow her hair out to the length it is now. And that she read Mandate of Heaven at the tender age of 13. If it isn't clear by now, Marin has a long history of reading manga and playing video games that aren't exactly age-appropriate. She loves eroge games, horror games, and all sorts of adult media. So it's no real surprise she'd read something like Mandate of Heaven, a story about how God is mad at humanity and sends his angels down to destroy them all. In fact, Shiba Tokyo, the author, seems to be obsessed with the aesthetic of destruction. He's also obsessed with perfection. In an interview with a friend, he disparaged an anime adaptation of a different one of his works. I didn't give permission because if I can't draw something acceptable to my own standards, what could someone else achieve with it? And ever since then, despite being one of the best-selling manga artists in Japan, none of his works have been adapted to anime. This line resonates with Gojo. He studies Haniel and reads Volume 13 of The Mandate of Heaven over and over again. He talks with others about it, and they point out how Tokyo has bizarrely strict demands, extreme fixations, and is basically a crusty old bastard. Rather than deterring Gojo, finding all this out seems to motivate him even further. He realizes that Haniel is an otherworldly beauty. She's not human, but humans are still obsessed with her. There is something almost alien about her, especially the way she looks at the reader after she's banished from heaven. Gojo spends days just trying to get an idea of where to start with this costume. He spends weeks searching every fabric store so he can get the perfect fabric for Haniel's Haori. After all, the Haori is Haniel's attempt at the beautiful black demon wings she fell in love with. Gojo's obsession causes him to miss Christmas, barely spend time with Marin, and basically hole up in his room researching fabric. But eventually he does find it. And when he does, it causes him to remake pieces he's already made. Maybe he was tired, or maybe he was insane. Gojo isn't sure. But as the days tick by, he finally finishes the costume. In Chapter 95, he sends Marin a text, which is a nice throwback to the text he sent Marin in Chapter 9 after finishing the Shizuku-tan costume. I don't want to spoil any more, you'll have to read it for yourself. I did want to talk about examples of obsession in other shows, though, both positive and negative examples. In the above example, obsession is mostly positive. Yes, Marin is suffering a bit because she doesn't get to spend as much time as she wants with her beloved Gojo, but she understood that he was working hard on a costume for her, and this would be over soon. Even the crusty old author Shiba Tokyo, despite being obsessed with perfection, was loved and lauded by his fans. Obsession seems to be the defining trait of either supervillains or visionary artists. Now, I'm not talking about perfectionists. No one who has watched a single one of Quentin Tarantino's movies would deny that the man is a perfectionist. But obsessed? When you say the word obsession, only one Hollywood director comes to mind: Stanley Kubrick. Kubrick had an almost feverish compulsion to make every frame a work of art. Time no longer matters. There is no sense of how many times you had to redo the scene or how long it's taking because you don't see time. All you see is the big picture. It doesn't matter how many takes are needed, you will get that scene right.
I wanna make it to another take and get it right 127 times. I'll make you learn to love me.
Other creators who are known for obsession include James Joyce, Victor Hugo, and even Patrick Rothfuss. A little bit, at least. If you haven't read his blog post about punctuation, let me summarize it. Patrick Rothfuss's girlfriend says something silly, and he asks her permission to share it with the internet. The problem is, he doesn't know how to punctuate it. It should be easy. It was 8 words. 2 independent clauses. Maybe a period? No, that makes it feel choppy. A semicolon? Technically correct, but only academic wankers use semicolons when they're trying to impress other academic wankers. Trust me, if you have any love for the English language, go Google Rothfuss punctuation. It's a great read and you won't regret it. But that blog post also lets us peer into the mind of someone absolutely obsessed with punctuation. When you change the punctuation of a sentence, you change the sentence, thereby changing the paragraph, which has a ripple effect on the rest of the scene. No wonder it's taken him over 12 years to finish the Kingkiller trilogy. But then again, all you have to do to forgive him for taking that long is reread the opening of The Name of the Wind. But for media examples of obsession, especially in villains, we don't have to look that far back. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3's villain, the High Evolutionary, was obsessed with creating the perfect world, to the point that if there was one flaw, he would reset the world, wiping out every man, woman, and child just to start again. And who can forget Thanos' obsession with balancing the universe? But this is an anime and manga channel, so we should probably get back to our main topic. Fruits Basket, as a shoujo, doesn't have a traditional villain like you find in most shonen series. But few will argue that Akito doesn't serve as the series' antagonist. and, at the same time, is consumed with obsession. Controlling the entire family, especially Yuki, causes all kinds of problems that poor Toru is left to solve. But villains do exist in shonen, like Tsukasa from Dr. Stone. He is obsessed with keeping the world pure and killing all the adults who corrupted the old world. And you've got the vice principal from GTO, obsessed with keeping the status quo and the image of the school. In fact, if you want more examples of obsession, all you have to do is take a look at yandere's. Of course, all of those are fairly negative examples of obsession. And, depending on what you're obsessed with, obsession is often a negative trait. Except in the case of creators. A more recent example of this would be the new Shonen Jump series, Tenmaku Cinema. Hajime Shinichi was a sickly youth who could only experience the world through film. And so, even though he's a junior high student, he's obsessed with cinema. In a lot of ways, he reminds me of Cute Stuff. Cute Stuff heard about the American Film Institute's top 100 films of the last 100 years and decided it was a challenge. She's seen them all. If a movie came out in the last 50 years that received an Oscar nomination, chances are she's seen it as well. One of the things she and I bonded over when we first met was a classic and highly influential film that no one else has ever heard of, Where Eagles Dare. So you can see why we started to like this main character. A sickly boy who is now sharing his love of film with his school's movie research club seems like he'd be a fun main character to follow. But as much as he's obsessed with film, Hajime doesn't think he's worthy to make movies. But all that changes when he gets possessed by the ghost of a dead scriptwriter. Initially, the idea is for Takehiko Tenmaku, the ghost, to just borrow Hajime's arm. You see, he was in the middle of writing a script with the director when he died. He just needs help finishing it so that he can pass on. The only problem is that director died 20 years ago. A week passes and they're trying to figure out ways to help Takehiko pass on. Hajime shows him the wonders of streaming and Takehiko gets addicted to Netflix. While begging Hajime to skip school so he can push the play next button, Takehiko sees the school idol, child actress Himeki. Lightning strikes the ghost, and poor Hajime is dragged back home. Hours later, Hajime stumbles back to school and hands Himeki a script. Hajime's body is still being controlled by Takehiko, and he croaks out how he wrote a script for her and wants her to star in it. He then collapses, only to awaken in the nurse's office. Himeki is there. She returns the script and accepts the role. And so begins Hajime's new life as not just a watcher of film, someone obsessed with the cinema, but a creator of film. You can read Tenmaku Cinema as well as dozens of other Shonen Jump titles over on the Viz app. For only $2.99 a month, being able to read the professionally translated versions of great manga like One Piece, Chainsaw Man, and Jujutsu Kaisen is well worth it. I'm not sponsored by Viz, but Viz, if you're listening, let me know. Obsession can be a dangerous thing, even if you're a creative type. While it is sometimes celebrated when you dig so far into yourself that you forget to take care of your body, it is devastating to your health. But it can be hard to stop when you finally find the thing you love. No matter how much you love something, try not to spend every waking hour of every day on that one thing. As Robert Heinlein said, specialization is for insects. Thanks for tuning in. Once again, a huge shout out to my editor Cute Stuff. I couldn't make these videos without her. If you'd like to hire her to edit your own videos, she can be reached at cutestuff.edits@gmail.com. Link is down below. If you're looking for ways to support the channel directly, you can head on over to patreon.com/Danon. There are several tiers to choose from. You can pick an anime or manga for me to do a video about, or you can join our monthly manga club. I also want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons: Waffles, Jiraiya, Danny, Muffins, Marcus, Squishy, Brett, Roxy, Josh, Sean, Pob Zombie, Mark, Alex, Daniel, Steve, Kevin, Alex, Cookie, Nick, Borgie, Jake, Exiled Rogue, Medmen, Manassas, and Nazwin. You guys are awesome. I post new anime or manga videos often, or you can click here to watch additional videos. Now, if you're looking for Commander content, I split my channel last year, so all new Commander videos are over on my other channel, Commander by Danon. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time on Musings by Danon.